Dear Venerable Sister, Brother, Dhamma friends, we are going to start another question and answer session. We'll start with the already written questions and see the possibilities to allow others to raise questions as time permits. We'll invite Lakshmi to start the presentation, please.
Thank you, Venerable Sir. Today we have a total of 7 questioners, 7 questions from 7 people. 4 are on sitting meditation. 1 is on day-to-day meditation, and there are 2 others. Thero Saranai, Most Venerable Bhante. Sit-down meditation. Since the time I started meditation at Nissarana Vanaya, my primary object was here, now I am, followed by observations of the seated position. Day before yesterday, I felt the breath in the throat area. Today I felt it pronounced in between the upper lip and right nostril. I took a challenge and decided to observe it as the breath was more prominent than the touching points of the body to the ground. The in-breath was observed to be narrow, smooth, cool and longer than the out-breath. The out-breath was warm, diffused and growth. After some time, the breath became subtle. However, I was able to observe the above mentioned characteristics of in-breath and out-breath. A doubt came to my mind whether I am doing the right thing, and that it was initially observed and later I acted upon it and returned my observation to the body posture. But the mind was a bit shaky and ended the meditation. During the last sit-down meditation today, I felt the breath as before and decided to observe it. Apart from the characteristics mentioned previously, the flow of both the in-breath and out-breath were noted to be interrupted with in-between gaps. Later, the breath became subtle, subtler and subtlest, followed by no breath. I was mindful during this phase. Sounds heard, few thoughts occurred, all of which were observed. Greatly appreciate your valued advice. May the blessings of the noble triple gem be with you.
I would like to draw the attention in one sentence. Nearing the end of the essay, it says there's a interruption of the gap between the in-breath and out-breath. That is totally not the interruption. Gap cannot be an interruption. If it is something, it can interrupt and disturb. But the gap, how a gap can be an interruption between the in-breath and out-breath. So our mind is reading utterly in the negative way. To see a gap in between cannot be interrupt something. It is not the word meaning of the gap. If you see the gap as negative element, if you see the gap as a bad omen, then interruption. Otherwise, gap means a relaxation. So when and where it happens, you see whatever the thing happen, your interpretation, your articulation, your vocabulary indicates how you taken it up. What is your approach to that? So therefore, just consider when you are in a traffic jam, if you see a gap, is it an interruption or it's a way out? It's your opening. So therefore, whenever it is happening, And I am making this point furtherance. For example, when you are observing the breath, if a sound happens, if you have a negative feeling on the sound, it's an interruption. Otherwise, it's an achievement of your mindfulness or diversification of the mindfulness while observing the breath. You can hear the sound. It is not a distraction, it's not an interruption, it is not a contradiction. If it will be a contradiction if you have a great liking or disliking for that. You see that the term using interruption indicate gap become your enemy. Gap becomes something negative. Gap appear to be bad omen. So how can you reach Nibbana? Because Nibbana is lying on the gap. So seeing the gap, you have to have at least neutral feeling, no good, no bad, is much better than telling an interruption. So this is the way our mind is cheating. Mind is perverted. Whenever the release happens, you have the fear. Fear of unknown. So therefore, why I am highlighting this is, next time when it is happening, consider this is an achievement of your mindfulness. And this is a door opening for the unknown, and try to maximize as much as possible that day. If you look at from that viewpoint, in-breath or out-breath become insignificant, the gap become the majority. Gap is the thing. The in-breath and out-breath just dust particles in the gap, in the so-called the volume of the gap. That is what happened to the physics in the present day. They started with the liquid form, gas form and the solid form, and later they add that thermal physics into the part. And when they are studying, ultimately they end up with the space is more than, or not even to use the term more than, insignificant materiality. Ultimately they found, when you are taking the total volume, matter is less than 4%, the space is 96%. And then whatever you have learned in the physics is less than 5%, that means insignificant. The Buddha mentioned this is nothing, this is sunya. So they have to appreciate how does the Buddha see through this bloody matter and see it is nihilist, it is nothing. And now they are, through the physics, through the known, they have go to the unknown, they understand the dark matter and dark energy, but no instrument, no sensory perception or organs can verify it. The dark energy or dark matter, you can't verify it, but it is 96%. Then what does it mean by physics? Bullshit, nonsense. It's exactly what happened when you to see the gap. It's at the beginning it appears like an interruption. Of course it is not the interruption because you are looking at the gap. It is 96%. You are so engaged, so misunderstood, so perverted with the so-called matter, ultimately you think whole picture is made up of matter. No. Matter is just camouflage of the less than 5% matter, insignificant thing. It is how nicely it is hiding the gap. That is the way our eyes, ear, nose, tongue, the body and the mind. So Buddha says just rip through and see the matter inside utter vacuum. It's nothing. As far as you are in the superficial, as far as you are carried away by this matter, its multifarious, multifaceted presentation, you will never try to see through it, because you get absorbed, you are taken for a ride, dragon with the matter. So whenever the matter is there, just study, and there are a lot of gaps. And when you go there, you find the so-called matter is such an insignificant thing. Even if you are living 120 years, if your whole life is with the matter, it's utter waste. At least to understand with respect to matter, the antimatter is there. With respect to the object, the shadow is there. The shadow is not nihilistic. Antimatter is not the nihilism. It is the truth. Even you can't feel it, even you can't verify it. So try to verify what is possible, matter. And then you can see huge area you can't verify, but without that you can't explain your experience, the volume. So therefore, when and where such a thing happen, we consider as a devastation. We consider as a something, abyss or cul-de-sac or endless bag like. But that's the point where the truth is lying. That's the point where Noble Eightfold Path. That's the point where the middle path. So therefore, simply, we can make in the common language, please go prepared for the gap. So if you are going to say gap is nihilistic, gap is not productive, gap is not creative, so therefore seeing the gap itself is the bad omen, so that is the way how you mishandle, misuse, misinterpret the truth. So there may be a lot of other remarks that I can make, but this is very, very significant. So simply I would say, when you are going further, whatever obvious, whatever conspicuous, whatever prominent, just see. And they can't make the whole picture. They are just doing camouflage, just like a makeup of a woman. They do pharmaceutical, not the pharmaceutical, how do you call this? Beautification? Cosmetics, facelifting. Utter ugly thing. They don't know after makeup and everything, they have no natural beauty is completely gone. And there are some males, they can see through it. And then what do you see? 32 putrefied things. Buddha used asuchi. Asuchi no paccavekati. So you are going to pay the pot of asuchi means the shit, with the coloration. And when you see through it, you see what an ugly thing you are doing. And exactly the males also doing. Exactly the politicians also are doing. Economists, socialists, present day education is utterly glossed over. So look at it very clearly. That is to say, beginning and the end. Then you can see what is the whole camouflage is. And they are bound to see the gap, bound to see the camouflage. That is to see how the face lifting. And vanity. Of course, this cosmetic bag is called vanity bag. Am I correct? You see, my mother forgot to bring the vanity bag, what the foreigner told me. What? Vanity bag? And she can't come out today because she forgot to bring the vanity bag. Because the reality is there. Exactly the way our old manners, all our civilization, all our culture, everything is something like vanity. And try to be innocent, try to back at home. And there you find there's no, convincing some people or show off or kind of advertising of the mind. See the totality in reality. Of course it is beautiful. So therefore, whenever such a gap happens, it's understand how powerful is the teaching of the Buddha with all kind of and still how cussed our mind is, we wish not to see it. And imagine the day you become perspective is correct and you try to see with that perspective, see the gap. Then in England, in the tube, they say, mind the gap. Station always says, mind the gap. Because if you put the leg inside in the gap, finished. So between the platform and the rail, there's a gap. So mind the gap always. So don't develop kind of a phobia or fear and go preparedness. I am again and again telling it is not nihilistic. It is not destructive. It is not uncreative. It is not unproductive. Without knowing that bloody truth, whatever you do is like a painting a picture without a canvas. Or try to put a ladder to the mansion in the air. You don't know where the mansion is, you are making a ladder. So this whole futile. So try to see it. Whenever you see it, you see how your interpretation is completely misleading, unless otherwise you listen to your words and say our language is just gloss over, just exaggeration. Truth is under your very nose. But you go to India and ask, going to Dhammajiva and accumulate merits to see Buddha. Historical Buddha. Also good, no problem. But the thing is, truth is just under your nose. Likewise, when the gap is there, try to cope up with, reconciliate with it. And don't try to say it is a distraction or it is interruption. Never. Gap cannot be an interruption if you see it in the correct perspective. So we'll go to the next question.
Theruvan Saranai Venerable Bhante. In my sitting meditation, my primary object is in the in and out breath. Previously, I was observing the middle part of the breath, and in a few minutes of sitting, the breath becomes subtle and then the void or emptiness occurs. I was inspired by your Dhamma talk a few days ago and tried to observe the beginning, middle and end of the breath. Beginning of the in-breath I observed as the abdomen tightening and sucking in the air. Air goes up in swirls like a spring, then a gush of air in my nostrils, and the abdomen relaxes to end the in-breath and start of the out-breath. The out-breath goes down my nostrils in a stream of air. I can watch the out-breath to the very end. I noticed that the beginning of the in-breath and end of the out-breath to be long. I realized that watching the breath in this detail made my mindfulness sharper and wider, while when I am in the empty space, the mindfulness was getting deeper and deeper. Before the retreat, I was mainly in the emptiness. My question, Venerable Bhante, is whether it is required to observe the breath beginning, middle and end, as well as observe the emptiness. For your valued guidance, please, Bhante. May the triple gem bless you.
So it is like emptiness and the breath are reciprocal each other, like the canvas and the picture. So while you look at the picture, maybe a water painted, watercolor or oil painted, whatever may be, can you still see the canvas? Or can you utterly only see the picture without the canvas? Or can you utterly see the canvas without the picture? So these are the combination. So all of them are 4 possible combination. Only the canvas, only the picture, canvas with the picture, no canvas, no picture. So this is the way we study something thoroughly and utterly and immediately and diligently. Whenever these things happen, if you make a question out of that, if you make a doubt out of that, if you make an uncertainty out of that, that is what you call ignorance. Mind itself has no such doubts. If it is possible, how can you see? So last problem mentioned, when the gap happen, it appears like an interruption. How can be interruption? And when the breath happen, the emptiness can happen because they are reciprocal each other. Just like the canvas and without each other, they can't stand. Just like 2 bamboo poles for the bundles. Each other. Can you see the breath without the gap? Impossible. Once you have seen the gap, you can't. So don't ask unnatural things. And person who has not seen the gap, they can't see the gap. They only see the beginning, the middle and end of the breath. But they are reciprocal thing in the totality. So let your mind to progress, let your mindfulness to progress and see. At the beginning, even the breath is not possible to see. So later you will understand and you see breath is, if it is a wave, it is in a canvas. The canvas is the emptiness. So when you are progressing, what is happening is your doubt will be slowly rectified. Your fear will be completely eradicated. Uncertainty will develop. Uncertainty will cease to exist. Only thing is you don't have enough patience. See? Patience just to repeat it again and again without asking question, without asking doubt, entertaining doubt, without having a fear. That continuity is called saddha. That is called the faith. If you have no faith, before doing the next sitting, someone has to come and say, someone has to answer these questions. So these questions are, when you analyze it and see, unnatural. They are artificial. That is what we call the inferential knowledge, or mind-made questions, or the conventional, the rational mind is utterly messed up. When the truth happens, it gets completely upset. It gets completely excited, asking this and that questions, and just like a bird put into a cage, try to find out. So let the bird to be there. Ultimately it's accustomed to the cage and it will be nice later. So therefore, don't think. Of course, at the beginning you have to think someone make you an answer, then your faith will be increased and you will continue. Yes, that is true. But later you may understand repetitive application of the same is a practical thing, answering all the doubts, all the uncertainty, all the fearfulness, all the lethargic nature, all the boredom, all the monotonous nature. And so answer is within. You expect the answer outside. So much so you are a slave. So much so you don't have the faith. So think the Buddha will answer me, or Arahant will come and answer me, or Dhammajiva will answer me. So you become just a suckling baby rather than finding your own way. So therefore, since we have already passed 1 week in the retreat, slowly now we have to depend upon your first-hand experience, repetitive application. Of course, with the correct perspective, you will understand the gap as well as the breath are reciprocal each other. Early part of the essay, it says, you see the breathing process in a whole big area. It is not bad, but if you wish to get kind of a concentration and one-pointedness, see the most prominent point, whether in the abdomen or throat or nose, whatever may be, take the vantage point and let the process happen. You must be anchored in one point. Then your concentration will be more forceful, and therefore, now you are already in the game. So therefore, try to get the vantage point, advantageous point, and let the mind to be there and see the in-breath, out-breath going, and there are better chances for the rectification of the doubt, or fear, or uncertainty. And these are the little hints, these are the little bit of facilitating we can gain through the discussion. So try to understand the lack of faith. That means doubt. And depend upon oneself here and now rather than the theory, rather than the book knowledge, rather than the omnipotent, omnipresent meditation masters. Whenever you trust upon yourself, you develop the confidence, you develop the contentment slowly. So you understand you are on the way.
Respected Venerable Bhante, following is one of the occurrences during sitting meditation. This particular question, Venerable Sir, has both sitting meditation and a Dhamma question. Okay. Sitting meditation. After focusing on the in-out breath for about close to an hour, the breath had become very subtle. I felt a gap when I lost attention on the breath, and I felt unbelievably happy. It was without even a very small amount of negativity or sadness. Uncontrollable tears started pouring down my eyes. Ashamed that someone might see my tears, I opened my eyes after a minute. Could you please help me understand what happened? I know I should not develop a craving towards such an experience, but it has not repeated again. I have continued my practice as before. Sometimes quality of concentration is good and sometimes not so good. What object should I focus on in the gap when the breath seems to have disappeared? Could you, with an example or simile, please explain the difference between sati and sampajanya? Thank you.
Thank you that Lakshmi today did not cry. I thought Lakshmi also will start tearing, and instead of reading, she also try to understand with the content of the letter. Then I also feel like crying. So I was thinking, if you have developed that kind of attraction or gladness or rapture, whenever it is disappeared, that very thing becomes a source of suffering. For example, you have to get up and then this gap disappears, the rapture disappears, then you feel like committing suicide. Imagine a sound came and disturbed, you hate the sound so much, you love the gap. Imagine a thought came and disturbed, you hate the thought, thinking that is the one came and disturbed. And at the beginning, this is what happens, nothing special. Everyone go to this kind of a novelty, they become excited. And when you next time goes also, you definitely disturb yourself. Mind you, there's no second person to disturb that. Your foolishness and your craving. That is what the Buddha says, sansaric suffering is the near culprit is the desire. The further one is the far away one is the ignorance. Then you can see, even if you get the truth, you get excited, ultimately you are the one losing it. But it is not a permanent damage. Next time it happens, definitely you will do the same foolishness. You will open eye and get up. Never mind, come and again sit in the same mood. Without any distraction, you can go back to the same mindfulness, because even by getting up, even by disturbing mindfulness, that the mood, the combination never get disturbed. So therefore this is called novelty, or this is called our lack of experience, and that whatever we do is a reaction, whatever we do is destruction, but it won't make much of a permanent damage. Whenever again the things get aligned, you are there. Because it is impersonal thing. But in the early two questions, I talk in promoting the gap, in promoting understanding. But the third one it is, even if you recognize the gap without fear, without any doubt, if you have so much of desire for the gap, that itself become a cancer. That itself become another culprit. So even after developing the gap, you must make it a day-to-day affair. You must make it a second nature. Not to have so much of desire, but to keep it in a eye shot or in a close distance. Whenever necessary you can use it. The gap has no any value if there is no distractions. Distractions have no values if you do not know the gap. When they both are there, you understand the Nibbana as well as Sansara. Nibbana means the liberation, the Sansara is your bondage. They are living together, not married. Please remember. They are living together. We are the children. They have no any problem. The Nibbana and the Sansara can live closely very together. The Putujjana can't understand, but Aryans understand it. The gap can live with the breath. The breath can live with the gap. But our problem is, we love one side, so much so we hate the other. So at the beginning, bring them both into the view in side by side, and understand 2 letters early, is a fear for the gap or kind of misunderstanding for the gap. The third one is no misunderstanding, no fear, but it's a problem. When it's disappeared, you get lost. So you see the Buddha how cut through, first introduce the gap, familiarize it, and see liking and disliking for the gap as well as the object, and monitor in such a way, both of them are reciprocal each other, not to have partial, sided interpretation for both. Then there is no way. Your shackles have been straightened, it won't hold anything. So therefore, understand, each and every one of you have all the tools, all the raw materials, all the potential. But this liking and disliking made everything distorted. Like when you see your face in the water, someone drop a stone. And the ripples, everything make you distorted. But if you are not repeatedly putting a stone, again they will come and your face appear. It won't make much of a permanent damage, because when there is no distraction, it's the nature of the water to reflect and become spirit level. So it will reflect. So this will happen again. When you're happening again, you will do the same mistake, but go prepared. After that, give the same condition as much as possible. Facilitate same condition as much as possible. Then you can see again that combination, that alignment can happen. Whenever it happens, this rapture happens, but one thing I can predict, whenever you go to the second time for the same rapture, it's thrills and frills reduced. Because it's now known thing. For the first time, it's so much of thrills and frills and oceanic, and you feel like enlightened. But when you are to see again and again the same, it will be reduced, but you become more mastery, develop the mastery, and you develop the ways and means to go into it, and your confidence will be increased. That means you become more mature. Yes.
Honorable Sir, do you want to address the part on Sati and Sampajanna?
I will try to do it in the Dhamma talks.
Okay, that's fine, Venerable Sir. The next question is on sitting meditation, but there are two questions in it. Most Venerable Bhante, my primary object is in and out breath at the nostrils. Once the breath stopped at any sitting meditation session, I held the equilibrium with difficulty for some time. I started feeling the stomach rising and falling, and it was a disturbance. So today I decided to keep on looking at the rising, falling, while keeping the equilibrium with no breath at the nostrils. Then all of a sudden, I felt that the rising and falling of the abdomen also stopped. It was surprising. I could not wait for long because the lunch bell rang. Am I doing the right thing or not? Please advise. The second question. If I watch the hearing of sounds also, will that hearing also stop sometime or the other? May you live long and happily.
The third one, you have to listen and see. When you keep on listening, husband will never listen to the wife's voice. It is naturally happening. I don't know how it happened. When the wife is talking, husband says, "What happened?" They can't listen because it is become so boring. It has become so accustomed. So listening also will answer the listening question. And whenever breath disappears, if you are going to search for the rising and falling, that understand how much you crave for matter. How much you are searching and take refuge of the presence. When something becomes absent, you feel lost. You feel lonely. You feel like outcasted. So you search somewhere and get hold into something, and that is also disappearing. So ever utter bankruptcy. So if you go with expectation, the breath is at a time present, at a time not present. And the disappearance, if you go prepared, you will go not not go in search of an alternative. Even if you search, that also in the same fate. Still you are not prepared. You think now either mindfulness is gone, or my concentration is wrong, or my faith is not there, or I have done mistakes. So you see so much of inflicting suffering. Inflicted suffering, when the truth comes, you become more and more uneasy. You become more and more self-critical. That is what you call kilesa. That is what you call the defilement. That is what you call Mara. That's what you call the evil one. So you are the one creating the Mara as well as the defilement. And if you go prepared, you are not fertilizing them, you are not feeding them, not facilitating them. Instead you understand when the breath disappears, it's better. You not go in search of. Even if you go in search and even that is also disappear, you say, okay, that's what the Buddha is telling, it is proving again. Instead desperate and search something. So that depends on the perspective. So therefore, if the present, yes, it's present. If the absent, don't challenge it. Experience it. Appreciate it. And then things will be in the correct perspective. The materials are within. Facilities are there. But if you misuse it, it is called the foolish carpenter. He is fighting with its own tools. Tools are there. So next time also, go prepared. Don't challenge whether it's presence or absence. Don't try to find alternatives or don't go for forced breathing. That indicates how much you chase behind the presence, the materiality or opposite of the absence. So spirituality is going from known to unknown, presence to unpresent, explainable to unexplainability. And if that is meditation, definitely you have to put the adjective, it is vipassana meditation. But the samatha meditation is, perspectives are completely different. So here I promote more and more on the vipassana way because I find enough raw materials in the letter itself to prove my theory, to prove my presentation. So therefore, don't challenge when the breath disappears. Don't go for forced breathing. Don't go in search of rising and falling. That is the way you create desire, and that is because your ignorance. That means searching and going for rising and falling become your volitional activity. That becomes sankhara. Ultimately that create karmic forces. If you do not know how to not to create new karmic forces, so much so, your whole craftiness, your theory is creating more and more karmic forces, and you make turbulence in the unturbulate, the smooth flow. So next time, please go prepared.
The next is also a question on meditation, spontaneous sitting meditation and walking meditation. Most Venerable Bhante, this is a report on two different spontaneous experiences I have had recently. One was while I was mindfully doing a day-to-day activity, and one was while I was sitting-driving. Day-to-day activity. I was mindfully carrying a heavy saucepan and serving at a dana. After a short while, I felt a small injury occur around the middle of my spine. With the pain, my mind immediately went inward. Next, I noted my body drop a fraction. I felt every point of my two soles as if they received a reflexology treatment. This was a pleasing, reassuring sensation. Next, I felt each and every muscle of my body pull and strain together to support my body and the weight I was carrying and recent surgical wounds. After a few moments, I continued to serve the food and completed all the tasks related to the dana. The second experience is on sitting and driving. I was driving to a boutique, Kade. When I turned into a busy junction, I became uncertain as to whether I was on the correct road or a parallel road. I pulled into a parking bay to think carefully without hindering traffic. From then onwards, I have no knowledge or awareness of what happened or for how long. When I came out of it, I found the engine still running, the car air conditioning very cold, and I felt calm. I continued to complete my errand. The only indication I have of how long I had been in that state is that the petrol gauge had dropped noticeably. Once in a while, I get into meditative states without knowing it, unplanned. Please advise me to understand better who am I. Much merit to you, Venerable Bhante.
So it's very happy to share with these kind of things. But I don't know how much I have gathered by this limited number of words. So I will cite two examples. I don't know whether it's giving a parallel. So during the time of the Buddha, the Devi Mallika was invited monks and he was serving dana, and all of a sudden an errand came and she looked at and put in the side and she was doing. And all of a sudden the servant girl came and she dropped a dish of curry, and he told, "You bloody fool, did the bad thing in front of the monks and get out like." And then the chief monk told, "Dear Daika, don't get angry. It's a simple mistake. We can sympathize it. Nothing to worry." Then she told, then the dana is finished. Then she told, "Bhante, I am not worrying about this kind of a dropping of a dish. But in front of monks, if you know what is the message I am carrying, that is something to be worried. My husband and 500 soldiers being killed. I got the message, and without disturbing the dana, I was keeping the message in my side, and that is the thing I must worry. I am not worrying. I am worried because you all are get disturbed." So she got the message, still she continued the dana. And the second thing is, I read the autobiography of Kalkondeya Panyasekara. It's a very thick one. It's a very dynamic monk, done the anonymous alcoholic in Sri Lanka, and a lot of social work. And it's a revolutionary time at that time. And he says he used to get fallen in sleep in the political meetings. Because each and every time he is being invited, and when the politicians come and talk about the bullshit, he starts to sleep. So in order to not to fall into sleep, he used to take the notes and he start writing kind of thing. And sometimes he prepared a notebook and the pad while he was sleeping in the bed. There's a bench, and till he fall into the sleep, he writes. Such a dynamic monk. And he says, "You won't believe, when I am continue to give the talks, 3 times while I am giving the Dhamma talk, I fall into sleep. And when I am awaken, I am still in the preaching." He says, "Who the hell can write my autobiography if I am not writing?" It is mechanically it is happening. You are giving the talk, and all of a sudden you go to unconscious, and when you come back, still you hold the fan, and the audience is attentively listening, and you know you was in the gap and came back. So these are some kind of things. That is what says, your life is a DVD done before your birth. You can't edit it. That will run. And who am I? Am I the doer? Or the householder? Or the executive? Or the person feeling? Nothing. Things are happening. So we don't know how much we are absent-minded or how much we are unmindful in the day-to-day activities. Majority of time, You are not here. You are not now. You are in the past or somewhere, but things are happening. So understanding that known, whenever you are mindful, you know, this is the breath, this is out breath, this is in breath. And you understand unknown, breath also disappears. Then you have to understand known and unknown, unknowable. Don't worry. That is none of your business. You have to understand the known and unknown, then you understand so much of mystics on the world. So much of the mystics are under your very nose. And how can you say, I know I am an expert for this subject and that subject? That is your utter foolishness. You can't understand this world. But it is not necessary for your liberation. Your liberation is don't commit, don't do anything willfully. Volition is that all the thing you are responsible, whatever you have done willfully. And even if you withdraw your will and the volition and the crafty thing, world will run, I would say, more smoother than when you are present. So I can simply guess how nicely your family members are now. When these bloody fools are not here, family members will be very smoothly happy at home. They also may be counting the dates when they are going to come. And you think, they will be fully upset without me and they will not eat night and they will not get up in the early morning. Like, no, much smoother. So die will you? Nothing will be, even if you are dead, nothing going to happen. So when I practice, when I am going there, Dr. Paragraph Fernando came, these bloody fools on the earth says this is the human world. Because they are the bloody exploiters. And if a cockroach is going to write the world history, it will say the cockroach world. Humans are the most destructive bloody fellows in the earth. And if the crab is going to write about the world history, it is the crab world. Humans are the most destructive. So like you see the perspective we look at, and we can make constitutions and make world orders and WHO and UNDP and monetary organization. What utter nonsense. Things are happening. Either power is decentralized or centralized. Things are happening. So we make ourselves more prominent, more significant, as if indispensable like. No, even without you can give a Dhamma talk. Nothing to worry. The sermon is running. You are not there. And some people drive. I know that Brisbane there is a lady and she has to run 200 miles each weekend. Ultimately she knew number of times she experienced the absence or mechanical sleeping. Ultimately she resigned the job. Because daily it happens. All of a sudden she wake up and still engine is running, straight road, very dangerous. And when you go on the long journey, it says, mechanical sleeping, no, take a rest. Otherwise you are putting your whole commuters in danger. Because long driving, you are in the mechanically put into the same rut, and the mind sleeps. So, how can you say it is my mind? Verily the question is asking, who am I? So, the Buddha says, if there is accepted I, then the problem is happening. On the right from the beginning, there is no I. So, how to find the characteristics of the I? It's a camouflage. It's a holographic image, no substance. These are the point it happens. So keep the openness for the unknown. But lucky enough, she was in the parking bay. If otherwise in the middle of the turn roundabout, you see what the kind of thing happened. But it make repercussions. Things are very smooth. Society run very smoothly. Even such a thing happen. So therefore you have to think the problem from the social point of view or your individual point of view. What is the thing we know? Almost nothing. So much of knowledge. So we have to say thank for sharing with us and keep the issue open. Don't be decisive, or that's called the niyata gatika, or it's pre-decided, like I'm not pulling to that side, but keep the situation open and try to understand these things are possible on the earth, even in such a complicated world, because our body is doing billions and trillions of things at a time. No one knows. Who the hell knows how the heart is beating now? How the cells are growing? How the nails are growing? How the hairs and everything is growing? It happens. So therefore, keep it open, and then no worries, no much of responsibilities. And I'm not telling irresponsible, but you have to understand this is kind of a cause and effect relationship.
Thank you, Venerable Sir. The next question on meditation. There are two questions here. Most Venerable Swamin Vahansa, I sought guidance on how to know as I enter the unknown, as I seem to become aware of having been there only at the exit and while entering the unknown. The last advice you gave me on the 26th was a little detailed, but I took it as a direction to watch thoughts, doubts, etc., so that I do not strain to see the end of the breath. I also felt in my bones that I need to revert to basics, and I thought I caught the same advice in that day's deshana. Although I have not had the fortune of experiencing void with full awareness yet, I am gaining so much knowledge, some new and some that I know I had gathered before but which are now refreshing my memory. I also know that day-to-day mindfulness plays a big part in this too, as it does in all meditative endeavors. Swamin Vahansa, can you please let me know if I have understood correctly? Question number 2. I have another concern, Swamin Vahansa. I have such a hard time keeping to the SMS at retreats. This retreat is no different. And the sad part is that I have so much remorse about it. I keep attributing this failing to my personality, but I know it is not fair and tell myself that I must keep trying harder and harder. More than the actual failure in maintaining SMS, this regretting mind upsets me a lot and comes up in formal meditation too. But since yesterday, I find myself contemplating this aspect in formal meditation very keenly and have gained an insight, I think, on who I am and why I have this difficulty. I find I am now more at peace with myself. Thank you, Swamin Vahansa, for guiding me always, and especially for giving me that last guidance relating to difficulty in seeing entry to the void. I think watching thoughts, doubts, etc. afresh as directed was responsible for this turn of events. May you have long life and perfect health always. Theruvan Saranai.
One sentence is there, I am not completely awakened into the voidness, or I am not utterly aware that when I am awakeness, in the void, it's a indicate when and where you aware, you are in the weight, I is not there. I cannot be there. Therefore, you can't write it in a grammatical sentence. I know that when I am in the space, never happens. When the space fully understand, you are not there. As far as you are there, you never understand the full space. So it's a contradictory. And the second thing is, am I in the correct path? There's no rush to decide. Please keep on. What is the necessity of intermediate report? Not necessary. That asking intermediate report is you are eccentric. Please continue. And talking about your regret, your remorse about SMS, that is the sign of progress. You understand, and then you can look at the other people. They are also sometimes proper good examples or bad examples, but some or the other they maintain their psychology. We have to thank them. Otherwise, if you also get to come and ask me that my psychology is upset, everyone will make problem for the other. Please thank others. Some or the other they do mistake, but never raise questions. They maintain there. So that is why in the group meditation you can see failures as well as success. They are reciprocal each other. So simply it indicates we are on the way. We are progressing. That is why the Zen meditation master says, wherever you may be, you please, darling, understand you are on the way back to Nibbana. So we are going to go to the next question.
There's just one tiny question left, Swami Mahansa. Venerable Bhante, this is the author of, who is the author of the book, Going to Pieces and Not Falling Apart? Thank you. Much merit to you.
Mark Epstein, and he has written marvelous number of books, Psychotherapy Without the Self, Thought Without a Thinker, and Way to Desire. I don't know, that I can't remember exactly, and Going to Pieces Without Falling Apart, and it's a kind of a brilliant kind of a author. So knowing that, a number of people, whenever he is coming out with a new book, there are donors. Before I go to the country, they say, Bhante, another book from Mark Epstein, another book of Mark Epstein. So every book, I get it before he finishes writing. So all the books are not equally good, but the books that I have mentioned is really talking from the modern, advanced social states and communicate with us his psychiatric and the mindfulness experience with this as a modern man.
The children have not come today, Swami Mahansa.
Pardon me?
The children have not come today.
Yeah. Because today is Satipasala day. Now, 3 o'clock we start the today's weekly program. We have each week, 3 to 5 o'clock. Children come from the close by. And we people get, Isha and others are get ready. And we guide them. And it's a marvelous thing happening. If you wish, you can go and see how the same building is being used for Satipasala, and they are concerned today over the weekly, event. So that's why the children, they have not come. So 3 o'clock we start in the down stories, in the ground story, and we will be up here. So 2 parallel programs are running from 3 to 5. Okay, this is the end of the question and answer session. Thank you very much for your participation.